Welcome back to the Marianne Hickman Show. Now, listen, you probably did a Google search looking for ideas on how to be a better leader or how to increase your leadership capacity. Maybe that's how you found us. Maybe someone sent you this episode and maybe you just stumbled upon it as the next episode right here on the podcast. Whatever it might be, I want you to lean in. I want you to pay special attention to what I have for you in this episode. I interviewed a couple, Ron and Marty Cooper. Now, they have there's a phenomenal intro to this episode in the beginning portion where we talk about their marriage and what it takes, because marriage is the most important institution. It's the one that's most under attack, and that plays a critical part. They do everything together. It plays a critical part in the story that we talk about. Now, there's some really cool tidbits here because Ron was an F-4 pilot in the Vietnam War. And I have to tell you, I'm so grateful for our servicemen and women. If you're a serviceman or woman, thank you. Let me know in the comments because I owe you a thank you. We owe you a thank you for our freedoms. And we discussed that on this episode, what it takes to lead, a squadron through battle, and what it takes to do that with fireworks shooting off all around you. We think we have it crazy in the corporate world of sales leadership. We don't. But the same principles apply. I'm excited for you to check this out. I'm excited for you to learn what's inside this amazing speaker's mind now that he's come back from over 300 missions and telling us what it takes to be a leader. Check it out. Well, I'm stoked to have, and I'm glad you're both here with me today. So you've been married, you said 57 years?
57 years, effective September 7th.
Well, happy anniversary.
Well, thank you. It's been it's a good ride. It's been a journey. So it's all good.
I want to start off by asking about that because I know you do not speaker training, forgive me, leadership training as a speaker for industries, for corporations, all of that. But before I go into the professional side of it, I want to touch what's most important. And that's this relationship right here between husband and wife, because without this, you wouldn't have anything else.
Yep, you're right on.
Nothing else.
Marianne, we're very happy with that.
So give people like me that are, Richard and I have been married 5 years. We both are in our second and final marriage. But after your experience, 5, almost 6 decades, tell us what we need to know about keeping our marriages strong. What would you both say?
I'm going to give you my version, and then of course Marty. I will tell you, for starters, Marty and I are very different personalities. If you don't know yet, you'll learn very quickly. I will probably do more talking than Marty, but I can promise you we do not have a male-dominated marriage. So I'll tell you that up front. And so Marty and I think the two very common things, but first off, it's our foundational values. Marty and I think we work together very well from the very beginning. And what I mean by that, Marianne, is that I guess I need to go into a little bit longer story. Without taking you through a lot of extraneous stuff, because I speak on Words Matter, I had a very, very poor mental health early in life, and I had no confidence. But the no confidence related itself. It took me 18 months to gather the courage to ask Marty for a date. I felt that, after seeing her physically, she's very attractive. I just didn't know that if I could, had any qualities about me that could keep her. So finally, I asked her.
Hold on just a second. If you're watching this on YouTube, would you just rewind and look at Ron's face when he said, "Look how cute she is"? Like, this man is so smitten with his own wife. I love that.
But it took me 18 months. Now, Marty worked in a bookstore at the college, and I would pretend to go into the bookstore for the purpose of looking at books, but really I wanted to look at her. And so
Richard is over here dying.
that was the start of it. And so it took literally, Marianne, 18 months for me to gather the courage. And as it turns out, Marty sent me a Christmas card. And I thought, rather than just send her a Christmas card, I just happened to have her phone number. And I said, well, thank you for the Christmas card. And oh, by the way, would you consider going to a movie with me? And it was Dr. Zhivago. And
that really dates us.
So that dates us. But I at that point I had the courage. So I just hope she doesn't turn me down, because I was a one and done dating kind of guy. Marianne, somewhat of a long story, but I want to tell you that Marty and I have always, today even, we could talk, we compare notes, we look into the future together, and together is a very operative term for us. We can talk, and talk. And the talking, I would say, from the beginning, was sharing our values. We were each raised on a dairy farm. So Marty in Indiana, I in Maryland. And so we each had that work ethic. And so the teamwork together, and we were raised on a lot of those same values. That's a little bit okay. That's my part of the story. Marty, what was it that led you to say okay to the date?
Well, when I first saw him, he's a very good looking guy. So when I first saw him, I thought, well, he's nice looking. But I have to be honest, I finished the 1 year of college, and I was so thankful just to be independent and living in an efficiency and my own job. And I wasn't really looking. But through the fact that he said, we could talk, um, and just knowing and talking to him, I knew that he had a mission. He was going to whatever he put his mind to, he was going to do it, and I really liked that because my dad was like that too. Um, but like I said, I wasn't really ready. And then one day, he was in my apartment, and he goes, I'm 2 years older than him. And he goes, if that's going to bother you, then tell me now because I'm beginning to like you.
Aren't I really suave,
I love it.
Marianne? And
So,
I don't know how else to put words, but I'm starting to like you, Marty. If traditionally guys are older than girls, but if our age difference is going to bother you, just please tell me right up front. So just one more rejection, I've had enough. I'll be able to handle a lot of things.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
but I really, I thought, no, I think I can work on this and begin to really maybe have something there, even though I wasn't ready. But anyway, and then my dad said, "You better hang on to this guy because he will be a good deal." So, and I love my dad, so his advice I always took. So,
Well, that takes a lot for a father to recommend a young man for daughters. I mean, even as a mom, when my daughters bring people home, I'm like, I don't know if I would pick them for you. So that's a big stamp of
and
approval. Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Listen, I'm interrupting my own show because I want to give you something. Now, you guys all want to get on more stages. I got a free resource for you of stages that are just clamoring for guests. They need guests on a daily, weekly, sometimes monthly basis. This is my podcast database. Now, what I'm going to do is have you go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put in your information there, I'm going to send this to you totally for free. Open up this database. You're going to click through it, find the next podcast that's relevant to your topic, hit the application button, show up on their podcast, get in front of their people, and share your content. Remember, mariannehickman.com/database. Let's get you unlocked.
It's a longer story, but it's a part of my life story, Marianne, that Marty's dad, my father-in-law, is one of four men who mentored me through a very, very difficult, poor mental health part of my life. And one of the things that he and I worked well together is we could plan things, building, do-it-yourselfers, hands-on, and he could explain things to me the way he wanted to do it, and I could follow him how he was thinking. And the two of us, our thoughts just came together real well. And Joe, her dad, said, "Ron, I really appreciate the way you think and the way we can communicate well with each other." It's a much longer story, Marianne, but for him to say, "Ron, I really appreciate the way you think," that he was the fourth of four men who helped me through a very difficult part of my life. Much longer story that I won't bore you with that. But I had a very difficult early age.
Well, I can guarantee you that I would not be bored with this whatsoever. I mean,
Yeah.
the one of the things that excited me to connect with you is secretly in the back of my mind, I'm like, I hope I can be friends with Ron and Marty even after this podcast episode is over because I want to learn. I want to learn from you. My parents also, well, my mom grew up on a chicken farm, and she was over in Taylorsville, Utah, right up here, and her dad broke horses, and my dad grew up the son of a serial entrepreneur who was also a pilot in World War II. My dad became a pilot. All my four brothers became pilots. I have my student license, and I won't go into that. That's a podcast story for another podcast episode. But what I do know is this: is that when you're laboring with your hands and your family is depending on your support through what you can produce with the land and the materials that you've been given. And then when the passengers or the country is in the literal backseat or proverbial backseat of the plane that you're flying, you get to cut down so much of the fluff. You get to increase your clarity because any hair trigger move could change everything, absolutely everything. And I know that's got to be part of what drives your training and leadership. I always like to joke around that there has to be a support group for people who are married to pilots because the way that we as pilots communicate is clear and exact and annoying on some level.
Well, no, Marianne, you are, yes, unfortunately correct about that. I will say that one of the things that Marty and I learned early on in our farming background is that we're a team and we work together, we eat together, and the fact that one person's work is done, the team is not done until the team is completed. That formed my background, my mindset of team. And from my life experience, there are three vocations that have teamwork down to a fine art. That's first responders, law enforcement, and military. And I say that, Marianne, because literally, in many cases, those three vocations, our lives might literally depend on each other, how much we communicate with each other, how much we trust each other, how well we work together with each other. And that's a lot of what I talked about in teamwork. And when we have a very cohesive team, and thank you, Marty, for remaining part of my team partner. But when we have that very cohesive team, Marianne, we can critically think into, we can go through what if analyses, and together we can possibly think through maybe 80% of what could happen anytime in the future. We can almost always avoid chaotic situations because we've already thought through much of what can happen. But it's the team as we think together, work together. And a part of what I represent in leadership is first and foremost, know yourself, fly, first lead yourself, and then surround yourself with people who complement you. And so it's a very appropriate to be vulnerable enough to say that I'm not as good as you are, Marianne. I'm not as good as you are, Marty. In so you two complement my weaknesses. And I don't mind telling you I'm weak there, but together we're the team that will accomplish. And so that's a lot of what I speak on.
So you mentioned the word compliment, and there's two definitions of this. There's one word version of the word compliment that means to flatter. We're going to compliment, we're going to pay homage to, we're going to compliment. I don't think that's what you're talking about.
No, not at all. There's if my spelling is correct, I think the complimentary that I'm thinking of is COMPLEMENTARY, meaning Marty fills in for my weaknesses and maybe
I keep him. I keep him organized.
she keeps me organized.
Yeah.
I don't need a checklist. Marty does. And Marty says, well, without her checklist, I can be all over the place. But that's where Mary and I'm saying that Marty and I complement each other like this. That's what I mean by the term complementary.
My mom used to do that all the time. For those of you not watching on video, I want to just illustrate what Ron did. He took one hand and the other hand and interlaced the fingers. And my mom would always tell me this. She would say, "You see, if I hold up my hand, there are valleys and there are peaks with my fingers. And the other person has valleys and peaks. And when you complement each other, it means these peaks and valleys, they fill in to make a whole. They fill in to make this watertight. They fill in to make this airtight." And I just think it's so great that you did that. I grew up watching my mom do that, who was also the wife of a pilot.
Okay, and so yes, many of us pilots, I would certainly suspect you are as well, Marianne. You can be very much a bottom line kind of person. I just need to know what I need to know when I need to know it. There are times we do not need committees nor calendars to make decisions. I know what I need to do, and so we have got to be very decisive in that.
Well, so when you talk about leadership, and I agree with this decisive nature, and boy, do you ever speak my language and validate my what can come across as harshness sometimes. I just need a decision. The lives are on the line, for crying out loud, right? When you talk to corporations, do you find yourself mostly talking to corporations when you do your speaking engagements?
Yes, and I deal mostly with small to medium-sized businesses, and we work best with those whose values align with ours. But I'm willing to work with anybody.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Jesus ate with sinners, right? So we can work with
Yes.
anybody. But I want to get to this point of the failings of corporations. I once read a book called The Top Five Dysfunctions of a Team, which I really loved. But I believe that it's not just within a corporation. I believe that a corporation, the team players who play within that corporation usually exhibit the same behaviors in the home. So the team aspect of performing in a corporation can also be reflected in the home and family dynamic.
Oh, Marianne, you just struck a very, very responsive chord. My leadership includes the expression, but I know it to be true. There is a continuum between home and work. If I have a good culture at work, at the work location, there's a reasonable chance you will go home satisfied, maybe not entirely happy because of whatever, but at least generally satisfied. And the same analogy there. If things are generally good at home, there's a reasonable chance you'll come to work being able to focus on the work. As leaders, my opinion is, we never force ourselves to force ourselves to work into a home environment, but we know that continuum. I want everyone in my organization to know I care enough about them through this continuum that should you be having any challenges at home, I want to be available to help you work through any challenges you have because I know that continuum. A part of the team is you at home, we at work. When we feel we have the trust, the loyalty, and we can work well together, I promise you, when the people and processes are in place, if you have a profitable company, the profits will largely follow.
So, what do you think are the top dysfunctions? When you're invited to come in to speak, there's a reason. The company sees a gap, and usually companies are very finance driven, they're very metrics driven, they're very numbers driven, return on investments driven. But the smart companies that hire you are saying, okay, we understand that part of our metrics that are suffering because there's some dysfunction within our team. There's, like you, it's used the fly analogy, there's some dysfunction within the individual that is leading to the dysfunction of the team. So give us a heads up. What are the warning shots that we can look out for in our companies and in our homes that you would say this is the number one thing you need to fix? I have some guesses, but I want to hear from you. What are the things that need to be fixed?
Marianne, I'm going to go back to one of the very first things we talked about, Marty's and my relationship, and we talked about communication. Way back then, in the very beginning and now, Marty and I can communicate. And we literally, in the morning, every morning, we have the luxury now that we can discuss things every morning. It's not at all uncommon. We may spend 2-4 hours to discuss whatever today is going to be. And we look ahead, and because of my self-induced ADHD, I can just go off on to different things, and Marty will keep me on track. But in that context, communication, how well do people communicate in your company? That has to do with personalities. And I perceive you, Marianne, as on a DISC personality scale, you're a D. And you're a very determined person. When you and I don't need, as I mentioned earlier in this conversation, committees and calendars to make decisions. We know what we want. We're largely a bottom line person. So as we learn personalities, just taking you right to the bottom line. If it takes you more than 17 seconds, then to get there, maybe we've lost time. Now, if I do that with Marty, she's going to think I'm trying to sell her a bill of goods.
I was going to say, we are different. He's a D and I'm an S. And I think, you come home, you've had the time at work, and sometimes you kind of have to modify your personality a little bit because you don't know what, say, the wife and the children have gone through. So the bottom line does not always work the minute you get home. So,
well, but
I don't mean to be negative. I'm just saying, you've got to consider before you go through that door. I may have to modify a little bit.
But Marianne, in that context, is how adaptive am I? How adaptive do I want to be? And so, if we are one way only at home and at work, you're probably going to run into challenges that way. And so,
I wanted to
let's
ask about the scale that you're using. You say a D and an S, and I've heard of hundreds of personality quizzes, Myers and Briggs and things and so forth. What's this one you're referencing?
all right, DISC, DISC.
Okay.
And the
Personality insights.
well, those are it's through personality insights. But just very briefly, if you think of the D, I, S, and C in a circle quadrants, D and I on the top half, the D in the I personality, the D is generally known as dominant.
Mm-hmm.
The I is inspirational. Those two type personalities are outgoing or very, very much out front. The S and the C are, if you think of the circle and quadrants, are on the bottom half, and that simply means that the S and C are reserved personalities. Marty is not as comfortable being on the stage with me as I am, but she will be. But the S personality is a very supportive personality, and she will place very high relationships. And so that's very important to her. Now, the C personality is the one who's can be known as very cautious, but they're very data oriented. They want to know data. And if you think of the segmented circle, the quadrants left, right, those with the I and the S are people oriented. Those of us on the left, the D and the C, are task oriented.
Yes.
And so,
okay.
if we emphasize too much dominance and tasks, people could largely, the Martys of the world could largely say, well, what about me as a person? Don't you care about me? You're just too much bottom line. How about taking a little bit of time to let's talk a little bit?
And then he gets in trouble.
Okay. But
you're speaking my language, by the way. I am very much with you on this.
No, that's all good. That's all good. But Marianne, it is a matter of discerning and adapting to various personalities. And through our DISC personality training, we can help the person identify within a few seconds of who you are. It's not fortune telling, but it's they're traits you look for. And when I see those traits, I want to adapt right away to that person. And as I choose to do that, and as I become proficient in that, I can develop long-term connected relationships. And connected relationships is a lot of what we talk about in corporate relations that many, many times I can tell you, Marianne, if I were now the way I was in the first 2 decades of my life, I wouldn't be talking with you now. I truly would not be. I would be very silent. And as a leader, if you're not willing to speak with me, if you're not willing to try to discern who I am, I'm just going to go through the day very silent because I have things buried in my subconscious that are keeping me from performing at my full potential. And so those are things I need to be aware of as I interact with people. There's about a half a day's or maybe even a full day workshop in that little bit of a summary I just gave you.
Well, it sounds like it. I think I'm going to need some links from you so I can send people to this because I know people are going. I know I am. I'm familiar with this 4 quadrant system, and I found an image of it that I will put in the link in the show notes. But if you have any resources that you can send me to send people to this, I would love to just share that with people because this is such an important part for me, especially as what you call a D, a task oriented, outgoing. My weakness has been that I tend to steamroll people when I'm being unconscious. I
Mhm.
tend to steamroll emotions, feelings, and it just happened this morning, literally just this morning. This morning, I was trying to figure out, my daughter was looking for her lunch. It was gone, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I wanted to find out the bottom line. So I texted my other daughter saying, "Do you know what happened to this sandwich?" Blah, blah, blah. And I caught myself. And I went back and I edited the message and I said, "Good morning. How are you? I hope you slept okay. By the way, your sister was just wondering what happened to this." And I even got reprimanded by my own HR team one time for being too abrupt. And I was like, "Oh, we're just trying to get stuff done." And she said, "Could you try just saying good morning at the beginning of your texts once in a while?" And I pushed back on that so hard in the beginning. But I realized it's exactly what you're saying is that how we feel as individuals determines how we show up as team members.
No, that's right on. And I used to think that starting out an email message, "Happy Friday." Oh, come on. I don't need any foo-foo language. Just take me right to the bottom line. Tell me what I need to know. Why are you even writing me? And but I would treat everybody that way. But people would frequently say about us, Marianne, "Oh, come on, you act like you're inhuman almost." And I don't mean that in any derogatory way. I'm with every personality, DISC and their blends. We have strengths, we have weaknesses, and we need to know exactly where we are. That our strength can be a very dominating weakness based on someone else's perception. And so, yeah, it's just like others were saying. Go, gosh, can't you? You act like you don't even care about me because you didn't ask me good. You didn't say good morning. You didn't ask how my day is going. And but Marianne, it's those kind of things that awareness. It's very intentional. Are we aware of how we can come across? Are we aware of other people? And can we make that connection? And so again, I'm not in any way trying to be a fortune teller. That's not my point at all. But we can be appropriately aware of other people.
So talk to me about how this showed up because if you're anything like the pilots in my family, we can't not talk about the airplanes, right? So
Yep.
you're sitting there in the cockpit of the F-4.
Yep.
You're in one of your what 300 missions,
I have 300 combat missions. Yes.
and now when
So
we
do
get to
I.
what's that?
So do I.
Oh yeah, amen. Exactly. Thank you.
I'm just let's have some humor here.
Right. I gotta ask, how did this show up when it came time to be driven on that mission? I'm going to share my rapid fire questions when we get to the top of our time here. But when you're sitting in the cockpit, is it time for this, or was that mandatory beforehand with your team? How did that show up when it was go time?
All right. The way this works, and I'm going to tell you in the military jargon, some lingo, the way we operated, that I'm going to portray you, Marianne, as a 4-star general, and I'm a captain.
Okay.
And so I want to put that kind of in that context. Now, you are my wingman. I am the flight lead. When you and I enter the briefing room, you take your rank off figuratively, and I am the flight lead. I am in charge of leading this flight to be safe. You, Marianne, are responsible for your aircraft flying it safely. I am responsible for taking us to the target area, accomplishing the mission, bringing the 2 aircraft back, all the people, all the resources. But we must understand there is a discipline that we have once we enter that briefing room. That if I have said something to you that you don't understand, you ask me, but you don't question me in the way I have planned this mission, because I am a certified flight lead. I've gone through training, and I am certified to lead this mission effectively, even though you outrank me. But that's in a position that is separate from the flight that we're briefing. Now, in flight, I have pre-planned it, but I have got to know on at any nanosecond if something happened that we did not pre-plan. I have to have already thought through what options do I have. I have done I've done the target study. I know exactly where to expect the enemy defenses. Should anything be different from what I had pre-planned, I've already thought through how I'm going to respond to what's happened. And so I would say probably 80-85% of my responses in flight I've already thought through, because I've thought through the maybe 8-10 different scenarios that could occur. So I know how I'm going to respond. One more time, I don't have a calendar nor a committee to make decisions. I've got to know right now. I have maybe a half a nanosecond to make that decision, and I am responsible, Marianne, for your safety to bring your aircraft back. I'm also responsible for having you arrive in the target area to put the ordnance on target, or whatever our mission is. And so I'm talking in very, let's just say, domineering, dogmatic terms right now, but that's the way we have to be. And as soon as we get down and our mission is accomplished, we will high five each other. We'll thank our crew chief, the load crews, and everybody. We had a very successful mission, because, somewhat in a sports analogy, that you and I are the ones on the 5-yard line that scored the touchdown, but it was everybody before that made our success possible. So it's the total teamwork that made all this possible, but I have got to have the mental acuity that I have thought through everything before we get into our respective aircraft. Marianne, there's a lot more that I can go behind that, get to the planning and so forth, but you can maybe sense the dogma, the determination, whatever D words you want. But we are determined enough that we know that I have thought through this. Nobody's going to shoot me down, and even if you do, you won't capture me. And if you do happen to capture me, I'm coming back alive. That's just a part of our mindset. So I can go off onto a tangent on this, Marianne, but I can tell you that is a lot of the mindset that we have. I can guarantee you that's our mindset. Marianne, you, Marty, and I are going to have a very successful, safe flight. We just need to be very disciplined to think into the mission before we take off. We know exactly what we're going to do. You're responsible for your aircraft. The way we communicate on the radio, there's no fluff. It's I'm on a bandwagon, so to speak. But Marianne, that's a lot of what the military discipline is about. Now, you in the corporate world, do you have that kind of discipline to where you work well with each other? But as soon as we maybe get out of a meeting, as soon as we get our proposal done and so forth, hey, can we go out on the basketball court, the football fields? Can we sit around the table and we're going to get together as a team? But there's the social aspect, and then there's a professional aspect. But the social aspect is what helps build the teamwork.
So it sounds like there's a sandwich of this. There's the social aspect that builds the trust, that enables us to have the right in the pre-flight room to have that dogmatic, disciplined, no fluff, all through the end of the mission. And then when the mission is over, we are back to connecting as human beings. It sounds like you have to have it before and after.
Yes, and I will tell you, Marianne, a lot of that evolves with core values. One of the things I talk with in corporations is, what are your core values? But more importantly, in just having a plaque on the wall with your core values is not good enough. What are you doing daily to live out those core values? One of those core values I teach is that, Marianne, Marty, I will never denigrate you. If I have anything that I wonder about you, if I want to ask you, well, Marianne, did I understand correctly what you said? No, I'm going to come directly to you. I'm not going to social media, but I will never, never denigrate you, Marianne. That'll tear a business, a relationship apart. And as you know from marriage, it very likely is going to take far, far longer to regain trust than it ever did to first establish that trust. And so, one of the things we do not want to do is break trust in a relationship or in an organization, because it could take, who knows, tenfold time to reestablish trust, and that trust may never be reestablished.
So what I'm hearing from you, and I want to reiterate this for every single ear that is hearing this, because all too often we find ourselves wrapped up in gossip, wrapped up in storytelling when it's totally inappropriate. I want you all to listen to what Ron just said. Rule number one is you asked the source directly. You connect with the source directly. Should any question of any integrity or communication pitfall arise, be the person with which the rumors stop. Connect with the source directly. Ron and Marty, I have the same rule in my marriage where I don't talk to other people about interfaces that I'm struggling with when it comes to Richard. We talk about them with ourselves. If we go to other people, it is with a unified front, and we don't go complaining. We go asking for help, but only after we have first talked about it within each other. And then we go only to trusted individuals, which is a very, very short list, who we know are cheering our marriage. And we're not saying, I'm complaining about my spouse. I'm saying, what can I do to be a better wife in this situation? Not what can he do to be a better husband, because he's not there.
Yeah,
Do I
you're
have that
right,
right?
Marianne. Oh, no, you are correct. Now, awareness, but it's now as it relates to personalities, you and I don't have a big problem confronting people. It's a part of our personality. We can do it easily. But however, the Martys of the world are less comfortable confronting someone. If I have offended Marty, and it's happened more than a bunch of times, she's not necessarily going to tell me right away. And so through listening, learning, I will have to discern that, well, Marty, you're quiet. Well, what is it? Now, Marty would frequently tell me, I've been married to you 57 years. That's long enough to know that something's wrong. But Marianne, even if we haven't had a relationship for that long, we need to be aware of some of the visual signs of some people. And as we're aware of personalities, know that those who are reserved have the propensity to withhold information. And if I come across as very domineering, dogmatic, they will be very reluctant to express anything. I frequently talk about having a psychologically safe culture, to where, Marianne, I want for you and I and Marty to talk about anything. I want you to know your job is not in jeopardy because you have a different idea of the way I'm doing things and so forth. We have a free environment. I want to know exactly what you're thinking, because I'm a person who knows that every person, every process can and should continuously improve. And so we improve by communicating. Going back to that term again, we communicate. So I want to create a culture to where you feel free that we can communicate. And so as we do that, we know that an idea put on the table, any number of us can improve on that idea. I'm not the one, irrespective of my title, that necessarily has the best idea. So a lot more that can be said about that.
Well, it reminds me of the story in Malcolm Gladwell's book. I believe, I can't remember if it was Outliers or David and Goliath. He's got a ton of books, and I think I've read them all, but those tend to blur. But the story goes, when there's back to the cockpit, the Chinese aircraft. Do you remember this story? Where
Yes.
it's, and I'll summarize it and correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially there was an aircraft that was running out of fuel, dangerously low on fuel. When they radioed the tower gave them instructions that were blindly followed, but did not pertain to the safety of the aircraft. And because the instructions weren't questioned, further clarification was not given. And because the tower was seen as the ultimate authority, even without complete data, the plane followed the instructions to circle around, even though the pilot and co-pilot knew that if they continued to circle, they would end up crashing. And that's what happened. Everyone, total, complete loss of life because it was not communicated up the chain that, listen, if we circle, we're not going to survive. There's not enough fuel to circle. We only have enough fuel to make it to their airport, but the tower said just circle. So that's what we're going to do. They must have a bigger plan. And I have found that that only works when we're communicating with God, not with man. It's different.
No, you're right. But and right away, Marianne, an incident that comes to mind that I too was low on fuel and in the F-4, and the radar controller told me to extend my crosswind leg out about 5 miles, and I said I cannot do that. And I said if you tell me to do that, I will declare an emergency. Now, those are magic words right there. I declare an emergency. I have priority. You cannot afford to tell me to go further that direction for any amount of time or distance because I am likely to run out of fuel. I know what's happening in my aircraft, and I'm telling you what I have to do to safely get on the ground. And if I declare an emergency, I expect, this is communication, I expect you, radar controller, tower controller, to adhere to my warning. I am declaring an emergency, and it is absolutely expected right then. I have the number one priority. You don't question me. So that's just part of how the aviation world works.
And one of the things I love about the aviation world is the clarify, verify.
Yep.
I remember sitting in the cockpit of this little, we call it Little Caesar, tiny little Cessna. And my brother is my flight instructor, and I'm getting tired and I need to pass off the flight controls. I can't just hand them to him. I have to verbally tell them while holding on that the flight controls are headed his way. Then while I'm still holding on, he has to say, oh, I'm receiving the flight controls, at which point I still haven't let go. And then I confirm to him, I heard you say that you're receiving the flight controls, and only then can I let go. And I don't know about you, Ron, but I feel like this is one of the things that is missing in our corporate worlds, in our families, not only the clarify, verify communication, but being able to rely on people. And this has been on my mind all morning, that most people will not do what they say they are going to do when they say they're going to do it. And we have gotten complacent as a society in allowing that to happen.
No, you're right, Marianne. And we have the expression in the F-4 cockpit, shake the stick, that we have a tandem cockpit in the center stick, shake the stick. I have control of my flight stick until the other person shakes it, and now I can relinquish control. Now, I'm not going to relinquish control until and unless I know I have trained that person and they are capable of taking control. Marianne, a part of a corporate environment is I hope we feel that we can delegate, but have we trained the people to be delegatable? Have we trained them, or are we just going to say, well, hey, well, Marianne, because you're on my team, you take this. Well, it's my responsibility to train you. Now, if I have not trained you, now here's the term that I emphasize very fervently: be accountable. I must be accountable for everything I do in the context of my leadership of my team. So I must train you and Marty to be accountable, to be able to take on the positions that I want to delegate to you. But I'm responsible for also creating an environment where you would tell me very freely, I just don't feel comfortable taking on. I need to know more about. All right. So tell me more about it, because I want to train you to where you feel very confident. You have as much confidence in yourself as Marianne I have in you. And so that's how we have to be able to communicate very effectively back and forth, because again, I do want to delegate to you, but I want to make sure that you're equipped to do exactly what I expect you to do.
Now, this is something that you won't hear many, many places. And I know this because I have not heard this very many places, that there is a level of accountability on us as leaders to not have threat of ego. If I train somebody else, they might replace me. That's garbage. What I'm hearing you say, Ron, is it is my responsibility as a leader to train someone so that I can delegate, I can pass off, I can give them the responsibility so that I can do whatever I am only capable of doing.
No, it's exactly what it is. And Marianne, I want to observe in you, Marty, everybody on our team, your strengths. And so I'm looking for your strengths, not your weaknesses. I will acknowledge your weaknesses, but I'm not looking for them. I am looking for your strengths. And so as I identify your strengths, I want to build on your strengths such that I can tailor my training to your strengths because I'm not going to be in whatever position I'm in for until I take the last breath. Someone's going to take over my position. So I want to train you and Marty and others on my team to be able and be willing to be ready to take on the next position of whatever it is you choose to do. Now, I'm not saying that you aspire to be the CEO of the company, but whatever it is you aspire to do, and I see the strengths in you, it is my responsibility to train you, and I am accountable for everything I do to help build you to be the person that you are capable of being. So again, a lot more training that goes into that.
Do you have a book about this yet? Because I want to read it.
I don't yet, Marianne, but there are a lot of things that, yes, all these things are just a part of the life lessons you learn through being a fighter pilot. And let's say, not necessarily just a fighter pilot, a pilot that,
Yeah.
yeah, you have got to be very assured of yourself. And for the first 2 decades of my life, I was not. I had a very, very low confidence in myself. I had to develop that. And that brought 4 men in my life helped me work through some very difficult part of my life. Much longer story behind that.
Well, I think I already want a part two of our podcast episode here, but now has the time has come. I promised my siblings that I would ask you these questions. And if you're open to them, we'll do these rapid fire because they just with the family dynamic that we have. My grandfather was a World War II fighter pilot and he turned mail delivery pilot because he buzzed the tower, got in a lot of trouble. But anyway, I owe it to my siblings because they heard I was talking to you. So are you okay if we do some of these questions that I
Oh,
have
of
lined up?
course. Let's go.
Okay, okay. So you mentioned that you have 300 or over 300 missions. My sister Julie, she wants to know how long is a mission?
Okay. A mission nominally in the F-4 unrefueled is 1 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes. That's nominally what it is. Now, refueled, we can stay in the air for as long as we can stay awake. And so now refueled, we have transatlantic flights, transoceanic flights, and we are flying with a tanker. And so I have had, I think my longest flight is about 14 and a half hours. But
And that would be
a
still one
mission,
mission, right?
yeah, one mission. Well, that from start to finish, that 14 and a half hour flight was one mission. But the one mission is takeoff to landing, or
Got it. But
mission
it has to be
sortie in
90
this.
minutes at least.
Well, no, it's a mission is takeoff to landing, however long that is.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that is a determining factor. Okay, so this one's kind of funny and you can answer it or not. But my siblings are very into health and medicine as well, and they want to know what happens if you have to pee while you're on a mission?
Okay, no, that is a very important, critical question. Quite honestly, we have what we called, I don't want to be offensive to anybody, a piddle pack, and it is a dehydrated sponge. Should we have to use that, we have that.
There you go.
Now, but here's the mindset, Marianne. Never, never, never do you want to have to urinate while you're in the cockpit. Therefore, you do whatever you have to do before the flight to ensure in this 14-hour, 30-minute flight, we do eat what we call a low residue diet, such that we don't have a story that'll go down in history of having to do something in flight that we said, yep, probably should have done something different.
Oh no, a low residue diet. I've never heard that before.
Oh, it is called literally a low residue diet. What we eat and drink is low residue, and go ahead and let your mind work on that.
Wow. Okay, Marty, I can see some words
Well,
curling around your mouth.
right. And to this day, just like we went to Blacksburg this weekend, and no stops, no stops.
Well, that
You
that
train
was
your
that,
Marty, what goes through your head when Ron says, "Okay, here's low residue packets. Here we go."
Yeah, right. No stops. Hang on to it.
Oh my gosh.
I have almost literally a 14-hour bladder. Once I get started and getting to the finish line without taking any stops, that's the name of the game.
What a superpower. Holy cow. Okay, so this one is a little more on a serious note. This comes from one of my other sisters. I've got five sisters. She asks, is PTSD a thing for pilots or is it more for people on the ground?
It can work in both ways. I can tell you, Marianne, Marty is a better person to assess, but after being in Vietnam for a total of 18 months, a 12-month followed by a 6-month tour, Marty would be the better person to know how I changed. There's some insidious things, but I can tell you that when you're in combat and you have anti-aircraft AAA, we call it, anti-aircraft fire coming at you. You have missiles being fired at you, and you know that if you are hit, you could be shot down. And so there's a part of a fighter pilot attitude that, well, it'll never happen to me, but we know it could. Now, when you're in combat, you know it can be shot down at any moment. And there's several missions where we had anti-aircraft fire, literally, that's crisscrossing. And Marianne, the best way I can try to describe that to you and your listeners is if you can picture yourself driving in a car and fireworks are going all around you, left, right, in front of you, nothing you can do to avoid. You just hope you don't get hit. That's been several times like that. And so we have the mindset that nope, somehow, some way, maybe through a greater power, I'm going to make it through this. But there's sometimes after the mission's over, you do think about it, and you can go through some what if thinking, and there's sometimes the what if can stay in your mind, and that can be the source of PTSD. Yes, pilots can have PTSD,
Mm.
and so we need to be aware of that. And I will tell you that there are times in the context of being a leader, there are various post traumas that some of us are not aware of. We just know that there's something, but we as leaders need to be aware of that and be ready to work with those who are possibly experiencing post trauma. And just know that we still love you and think a lot of you. I want to work with you. I'm not. You're not. Your job's not in danger. So, but that's kind of a long answer to PTSD. But yes, it can definitely happen to pilots.
Well, I'm grateful for the longer answer because I think that that what you said at the end is most important. Is it doesn't disqualify you,
No,
and that's
it definitely
important.
does not. Post trauma is just a life reality.
Mhm.
And any number of us can experience post traumatic traumas from whatever. And it's not just combat, any number of things. And I will tell you that in the context that words matter, people can be traumatized simply from words.
My dad
And
always said
so,
that words mean things. That's what he
and
said.
Man, you said that earlier. That and yes, we know it. And so not everybody's going to be comfortable to tell us that. Man, tell me what you meant by what you said. And but some people can be traumatized by that. And so we need to be very adaptive. We as leaders need to be very adaptive to people and in their lives, their personalities.
Again, I want to do a whole nother episode because I am just starting to have so many more other things that I want to discuss. But I want to honor what I promised my siblings. Okay, my sister also asks, did you want to be a pilot before, and if after the war, did you fly, and if so, in what capacity? So it's a two-parter. Did you know that you wanted always to become a pilot, and did you fly after the war?
The first part of your question is yes. The second part is no.
Oh,
I I was maybe 5, 6 years old when I was at what is now called Joint Base Andrews, but Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. I saw an air show, and the Air Force aerial demonstration team, Thunderbirds, were flying,
oh,
and I just thought then it became a fascination, which became a burning desire. I want to fly. And I did not want to tell anybody because I felt that I had no idea how I could do that. And I did not want people telling me I'm not smart enough and so forth. Therefore, I just withheld that. 15 years later, I was very thankful that after applying, I got the notice that I have been accepted into undergraduate pilot training, which Marianne is just that was a wow event for
Oh.
me. And so after I flew with the Air Force, do I want to continue flying? There's to some degree, yes, but not an airliner because Marianne, if you and Marty were a passenger in the
Oh,
airliners
I've
that,
been an airline passenger from an Air Force pilot.
okay,
It is not
and
comfortable.
all right. So if I were to fly that airliner the way I would like to in a free form, you wouldn't fly in it. You wouldn't fly with me any more than one flight. And so it's one of those kind of things. So I tell you, at this point, okay, I'm a passenger, not a pilot. And so I look back very fondly at my flying career and everything that I've learned from that, and I'm leveraging, passing forward everything that I learned from my flying days.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Man, if you ever have had a hard stop on a runway, you can either say, well, it's probably Air Force or Navy right there. Yep. Thank you for your
Right
service.
there.
You're flinging four out of your seatbelt. Okay, this is a question. I don't know if you're able to answer this one or not. If you're
I'll
not, that's
try.
okay. That's okay.
Sure.
But this is the question. If ever, how often did you deviate from orders?
There was here's one. It may seem somewhat innocuous, but there was a time in Vietnam, and Vietnam was a very difficult war to wage. That it was largely run from the White House, not the military, and so we had different orders come down. And one of the orders was you cannot drop ordnance until and unless you've been fired on. Now, I will tell you that we in the cockpit think that, oh my goodness, I just can't do that. If I'm in enemy territory, if I see something, I feel obligated to drop ordnance on it. But yet the ROE rules of engagement, where no, you cannot in a certain area drop ordnance until and unless you're fired on. And so over a period of time, Marianne, that rule became lax, or let's just say we ignored it. But then a letter came down, and the letter was dated whatever the date was, but it said in there, I, the general officer, need for you to sign this letter not later than the date. But I read the letter about a week after the date that it was to be signed,
Oh,
and I thought, okay, I asked my commander, well, I can't lie about this. This is a week after the date that I was supposed to have signed this letter, but I never saw it until he said, go ahead and backdate it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'll tell you, Mary, that violated my integrity. I did because he said so. But did I ever violate orders? I will tell you that there were some times that no, I was asked to no. Right now, it comes to mind. I was in a squadron where the squadron commander asked me to document some flight training events even before I did them, and I said, "No, sir, I cannot do that." And he said, "I'm going to have to move you to another squadron then." And I said, "Well, sir, I want you to do whatever you think you have to do, but I am not going to lie about my training requirements." And so Marianne, I'll tell you in the context of values, that's just one thing that I pass on to those in corporations, that we won't lie to each other. And if
oh,
I have to fess up to doing something different, wrong, I'm going to fess up to you that, yep, I did not make a good choice, but don't ever lie to me. Don't. And so, Marion, that was a part of my background then. I would not then. I will not now. I will not lie to you. Will not lie to Marty. I won't lie to anybody. That if I made a very poor decision, I'm going to fess up to it, and I'm going to be accountable to you, and I'm going to say, okay, if you're in charge of me, you take whatever consequences you think you need. But I'm going to tell you that yes, I did something wrong, and but I won't do that again. And from that, I guess it would depend on the severity of the decision I made at the time. But that's one of those things that no, I would not violate any orders.
wow. Wow. I could not be happier and more impressed with that answer. And I hope that everyone listening will take note of that, and maybe that helps us pause a little bit before we say or do things, because if we have to tell the truth about it later, is that the truth we want to stand next to?
Well, and
Okay.
I'm going to tell you very briefly, Marianne, in deference to time, that's all part of a psychologically safe environment culture that we have to have. That I want for you to acknowledge, and I'll tell people all the time that you'll never get in trouble with me as long as you tell me the truth.
That's what I tell my kids.
All right,
The
there you go.
penalty's coming when you lie to me.
Yeah, that right there.
Ugh. Okay, I have two more questions, and this is from a brother of mine who he is not only he's a rocket scientist. I'll just put it that way. He's an absolutely brilliant, and you'll see it in the questions. He says, describe the most interesting limitations from the Phantom's operating handbook. You can tell he's my flight instructor, right? So, the most interesting limitations from the Phantom's operating handbook.
And I will tell you one of the things that it was at the time was a top secret technology,
Ooh.
but it had to do with IFF, identification friend or foe. And as we are looking out forward of our radar, how could we determine if the person, the aircraft out front, is that person friend or foe? The technology on the radar had the ability to query that aircraft ahead, and we could know what was happening. We could know whether it's a friend or foe. Now,
Oh, wow.
um, those, and I will tell you that some other things that has to do with technology, but radios. It sounds almost like I'm convoluting some things, but I will tell you that we've got to be very keenly aware of what we hear on the radio because we had a lot of people talking throughout. But we have to know how to process information, and so I still today marvel at those who design aircraft, and your brother may be of this type. Just thank you for making very reliable equipment that I can, we use the term frequently, as I strap my airplane on, I can feel if everything is running correctly, even without looking at the gauges. And so I have gauges that I look at very quickly, and I say, yep, 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 everything's normal. But I thank people like your brother technologically that the gauges work, but then also, even if there's not a gauge, there are thousands of systems that are working that I don't even know how they're interacting, why they interact the way they do. But thank you, brother, for designing the airplane the way you do, because I made it back. And I can tell you, Marianne, that for me personally, the number of landings for me equals the number of takeoffs, which means I did not have to eject at any time in airborne. And I'm very, very grateful to designers and maintainers that the aircraft always functioned well. So that's somewhat of a roundabout answer to your brother.
Well, I'll make sure he hears that. I have one last question for him, and then I have one last question from me before
Sure.
we wrap up our time together. His last question is interbranch rivalries. He wants to know, did anything change with interbranch rivalries or cooperation when it came to combat time?
When we're in combat, we are a unified team, totally unified. Doesn't matter what branch of the service you are in. We wear the uniform. We are serving our country, and we're serving our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and so forth. After we are done with the mission, the flight, whatever it is, maybe we're at the officers club, or wherever we are, we can shuck and jive, as I call it. We can just say, well, Marianne, you are, and we can have some inter service rivalries, but we know that we are functioning as a team when we're in combat. Yep, those of you in the Navy, you're maybe a flyer, but you may be a boat rider, you may operate underwater, and the various services have the various functions. And I was not designed to be a rifle carrier. I was designed to fly an airplane and carry a pistol. So thankfully, there are those who served on the ground. I did not. But again, Marianne, when we are in a social environment, we can, it's all a part of the teamwork. we can just have a very, very friendly rivalry. But in spite of the term rivalry, it's all in a very joking way. When it comes time to be a team, man, I tell you what, doesn't matter what you do, what you're trained to do, we do function as a team. So again, somewhat of a long-winded answer, but yes, we have friendly rivalries, but we function as a very unified team across the board.
And I hope every parent and every child hears what you just said and applies it to the family. We might have tags at each other and internal jousting matches at home, but once you represent your family outside the home, whether it's a God forbid a wartime combat or whether someone just attacks your little brother, I hope that each family can show up the same way.
Oh, you're right on, Marianne. Right on. Yeah. And I do encourage let's have some lively, let's say spirited debates. But at the end of these debates, whatever spirited conversations, we've got to, go to the room together, go to the table and eat together, whatever it is. But we will do it together.
Amen to that. Well, I just have about 60 seconds before I hop on a training, but I wanted to ask one last question. September 10th of this year, the world was witness to one of the greatest tragedies of our time. And it happened 20 minutes south of our home on UVU campus when Charlie Kirk the world, surprising is not a big enough word from it, but he was stolen from us. I believe that he was doing what he loved as he loved to do it. And I also believe that we as speakers, he was in our industry, shared a lot of faith with a lot of us. I believe that few of us will be called upon to die for our message the way he did. Instead, we will be called upon to live our message. So, Ron and Marty, I want to ask you this before we leave today. What is the message that you hope will outlive you? Let's pray that that doesn't come for a long time yet, but what is the message that you want to become known for?
Thank you, Marianne. And of course, we're referring to Charlie Kirk. And as Charlie Kirk did, I do want to discuss in a very spirited debate with people. I do learn from people with whom I disagree. And so I do want to have very spirited conversations. Marty and I together right now are developing a program we call the 3 R's, and it has to do with revenge or start out with resentment. I resent what you just said, what you did, or so forth, which then can become resist you. I will resist you, Barry, because of what you did. And if it goes further, it may be retribution, that I will seek retribution against you. And I hope it's not at the end of a knife or a gun barrel, something like that. But one of the things, the legacies that I want to be known for, Marty and I together, is what can we do to be a catalyst to inspire others to have spirited conversation without denigrating each other, without seeking revenge with each other. We must learn how to have spirited conversations, disagree with each other if that's in fact what we do, but not at the point ever that we would seek retribution with each other. We can disagree vehemently, but again, as we've discussed many times before, we have to be able to leave the conversation together, and where we will seek to always have connected relationships to where we will be able to function well together, even where we may disagree. But let's look for the positive. As we look for the positive, we'll find it. The converse is true as well. As if we're prone to look for negative, we'll find that. But as we help focus on finding the positive, Marianne, you, Marty, and I together will find the positive, we'll build on the positive, and we will be positive. That's the legacy I want to leave with people. And I don't think I'm talking of any sort of fantasy at all. I just know this can happen, but we have to have the mindset to want to do this.
Marty, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would like for when the Lord calls me home, that everyone that I met could see that I wanted a relationship with them, I valued them, and Christ was shown through me.
Amen. Amen to that. And if you're listening to this, I hope you feel this from Ron and Marty. Ron and Marty, where can people connect with you? If they loved what they heard on this episode, where can they connect with you?
We have a website called www.thecooperculture.com. You can reach me at email Ron, R-O-N, at thecooperculture.com, or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. Marty and I are built and designed to have dialogue. We do want to interact with and dialogue with people.
Well, I appreciate the dialogue that we've had today, and I really meant it. I want to have a part 2 where we go deeper into the concepts of communication, the concepts of relationship. In the meantime, friends, if you've listened to and enjoyed this episode, please connect with Ron and Marty. Let them know that you were grateful. Let them know the gold nuggets that you got from this episode. Let them know what you're going to implement before you go to bed tonight, because you've been blessed by their presence today. Ron and Marty, thank you so much for being right here on this episode. And friends, we will see you next time. Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We have some pretty amazing speakers on my podcast, and of course, more to come. If this is something that you enjoyed, guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. I love your comments, and I respond to every single one of them personally, not a bot or an agency. So if this is something you're enjoying, tell me about it. Tell me your gold nuggets. I want to hear from you. But here's the most important thing I want you to laser in on. I told you about the podcast database. You've probably seen me post about it all over social media. I want to make sure that you get it. So here's what I want you to do. Go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put all of your information in there, I'm going to send you the document. You request access to it. Boom, it's unlocked. Once you're in there, my rule of thumb is to apply to 10 podcasts a month. It's very digestible. It's very easy to do. And the database gets updated twice a week. So I want you constantly checking back in there for the next podcast that fits your audience. Thank you for being here. Much love to you, and we'll see you in the next episode.